Subscribe before the truth disappears. The video clip was only 12 seconds long, but it changed everything. Detective Elena Marquez replayed it again, her thumb hovering over the screen as the camera jerked violently and a man's voice whispered, "They're moving them, all 3 prisons, same night." Then the recording collapsed into darkness, followed by a single image, a hand pressed against a steel door smeared with blood. Elena watched it again, and again. Every time her gut tightened. The video had been sent anonymously to her encrypted inbox at 3:17 a.m. No name, no location tag, no metadata. Just those 12 seconds and a subject line. La Sabaneta was only the beginning. By sunrise, she was on a flight to Caracas. The Venezuelan heat hit her like a physical blow the moment she stepped out of the airport. The air tasted of diesel fumes and tension. She wasn't here on behalf of her agency. She wasn't here officially at all. But when an anonymous informant claims there's a coordinated operation happening between La Sabaneta Prison, Black Dolphin, and Carandiru, you don't wait for approvals. You move. La Sabaneta looked worse than the photos. Rusted bars, broken floodlights, walls covered in scorched black patches from past riots. The kind of place where hope didn't survive long enough to rot. As Elena approached the entrance, a guard leaned against the wall smoking a cheap cigarette. His eyes were bloodshot, his uniform stained with sweat. "You're the investigator?" he asked, not sounding pleased. "Marquez, I just need 30 minutes with the warden." He snorted. "He doesn't give 30 minutes. If he gives you 5, consider yourself blessed." The guard led her through the metal detectors, though no one actually checked anything. Screams echoed from the courtyard. Someone was crying. Someone else was shouting in 2 languages. A smell hit her, something between sewage, gun oil, and fear. They reached the warden's office, a small room with peeling paint and a fan that barely moved the hot air. Warden Correa sat behind a cheap desk, hands folded too neatly. "You came about the video," he said before she could speak. Elena's pulse quickened. "So you've seen it." Warden Correa opened an envelope and dropped it on the desk. Thick, heavy, sealed. "The same file was sent to me last night, along with a second message." "What did it say?" Warden Correa looked her dead in the eyes. "It said not to let you inside." For a moment, the room felt colder. "Why?" Elena asked. Correa tapped the envelope. "Because someone wants to bury whatever this is, and they're willing to bury you with it." She opened the envelope. Inside were printed photos, grainy, night vision-like stills. Not from La Sabaneta. The angles were different. The walls were clean. The uniforms heavier. Russia. Black Dolphin Prison. In the images, inmates were being marched down a hallway in tight formation. Not unusual for Black Dolphin, but then she saw the timestamp. 2:14 a.m. Same time the whisper in the video said, "They're moving them, all 3 prisons, same night." Another photo, blurry. Brazilian officers in riot gear, lights flashing, a line of stretchers outside Carandiru. "What is this?" Elena whispered. "Something that didn't reach the news," Correa said quietly. "Something someone wanted erased." Before she could respond, a deafening blast shook the building. The window rattled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Elena drew instinctively for a gun she didn't have. What was that? Correa was already on his feet. "Courtyard, move!" They rushed through the hallway, boots pounding, guards shouting in 2 directions. Smoke seeped under a steel door. When they burst outside, chaos swallowed them whole. Inmates were running, some crouched, some bleeding. A guard was screaming into a radio that clearly wasn't working. Then Elena saw it. In the center of the yard, next to a toppled barrel fire, lay a man, face down, arms twisted behind him. Dead. Correa knelt beside the body. "He was one of ours," he said darkly. A folded piece of paper was tucked into his man's fist. Elena pulled it free. There was a single line, typed in block letters. "Stop following the path." No signature, no symbol, nothing. But there was a second message underneath, written in red ink. "One went missing tonight." Elena looked up sharply. "Missing? Who?" Correa swallowed. His voice was barely audible. A foreign detainee, a journalist. Elena felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. What was he doing here? Correa hesitated. Investigating something about prisoner transfers. He said all 3 prisons were connected somehow. Her blood ran cold. Where is he now? That's the thing, Correa said. He vanished from his cell 2 hours ago. No cameras, no logs, no guards saw him leave. It's like he was taken, Elena finished. Not escaped, taken. A guard ran towards them. Warden, you need to see this. The guard handed Correa a smuggled phone. The screen showed a paused video message. Elena took it and pressed play. A hooded figure appeared. Behind him, Elena could see a concrete wall, painted with numbers and tally marks. La Sabaneta, Black Dolphin, Carandiru. 3 columns, 3 walls, 3 sets of tally marks, all connected by a single line drawn in red. Then the figure spoke in a distorted voice. You are late, detective. 1 prison has already emptied its chosen list. 2 more will follow. Do not search for the truth, or you will join them. The video cut to static. Elena's pulse hammered. Who is sending these? Why me? The guard spoke hesitantly. There's something you need to know. Before he disappeared, the foreign journalist left 1 message for you. Elena's breath caught. A message? For me? The guard nodded and handed her a small, blood-stained scrap of paper. 4 words, written shakily. Words that made the world tilt beneath her feet. You know the reason. Her throat tightened. Because she did. 10 years ago, Elena investigated a case that the world was never allowed to hear about. A case involving a vanished prisoner, 3 countries, and 1 list of names. Names of people who were never supposed to leave prison alive. And now, somehow, the list had resurfaced. Worse, one of the names on it was hers.
Elena stared at the 4 words until they started to blur. You know the reason. The courtyard roared around her, shouts, radio chatter, the rumble of boots. But all of it sounded distant, muffled, like she ducked her head underwater. The paper weighed almost nothing in her fingers, and yet it felt heavier than the pistol she wished she had. 10 years. 10 years since the list. Detective, Warden Correa's voice dragged her back. We need to get you out of the yard, now. This isn't secure. She folded the note and slid it into her pocket. I'm not leaving. You misunderstand. His jaw was tight. The message wasn't a threat. It was a reminder. If your name is on that list, you are never supposed to walk into this prison again. He signaled to 2 guards, who formed a loose escort around her as they crossed back toward the main building. Inmates watched them from the shadows, eyes flat, unreadable. Some knew something, some didn't. It almost didn't matter. In a place like La Sabaneta, knowledge could kill you faster than any shank. Inside his office, Correa shut the door and locked it. Sit. He poured 2 fingers of cheap rum into a glass and pushed it across the desk. You look like you remember more than you're saying. Elena didn't drink. She sat, but her body stayed tense, ready to move. You said you got that video too, the one linking all 3 prisons. He nodded. And like a fool, I watched it twice. Who else has seen it? Just me, and now you. Anyone else knows about the missing journalist? Correa's silence was answer enough. Whoever had arranged this wanted it silent, contained, deniable. She pulled out her phone and opened an encrypted folder. Old instincts took over. Compartmentalize, prioritize, move. She searched a decade-old case file she'd sworn never to open again. Project Residuo. The title glared back at her like a wound. Back then, she'd been a rising investigator working with an international task force, digging into rumors of a covert program that reassigned high-risk prisoners to foreign facilities where oversight was weak, records were easy to manipulate, and bodies disappeared under the weight of overcrowding and riots. La Sabaneta, Carandiru, Black Dolphin. Everyone in the task force believed they were investigating human trafficking or illegal extraditions. They were wrong. The goal wasn't to move prisoners. It was to erase them. She'd found a partial document, a list of names flagged as irrecoverable assets, men who knew too much, crossed the wrong people, or were politically inconvenient. Their sentences were altered, transfers approved. They vanished into the black hole of the world's most dangerous prisons. And then the case had died. Funding cut, witnesses recanted. One of their analysts died in a car accident that still woke her some nights. The final blow came in a closed-door meeting where a superior slid a folder across the table and told her in a voice that sounded almost gentle to burn it. She hadn't. She'd hidden one page. The list. She looked at Correa. "Do you keep physical records of foreign detainees?" He frowned. "Foreign? We have a few. Smugglers, mercenaries, a handful of political cases." "Why?" "Because someone doesn't want those names to exist. And when paper doesn't erase cleanly, fire does." A knock at the door cut her off. A young guard stuck his head in, nervously. "They're done, jefe. You told me to bring this." He handed Correa a thin file. The foreign journalists' intake papers. He dismissed him and handed Elena the file instead. Name, Daniel Havel. Nationality, Czech. Occupation, freelance investigative reporter. Reason for detention, unlawful presence in restricted facility, foreign interference. She scanned further down. In the known contacts field, a line of handwriting made her skin go cold. Former affiliation, Joint Task Group Residuo Inquiry. He wasn't random. He'd been following her old ghost. "How long was he here?" she asked. 6 days. Silent, observant, too sure of himself. He asked to see our transfer logs. I told him no. Someone higher than me told him yes. Someone higher? In the ministry. I don't know who. Call came through an encrypted line. They told me he was to be treated as a temporary security asset. And then he disappears. And the same night, you get a video telling you to keep me out. Correa's gaze hardened. "Detective, if this goes above me, it goes beyond anything you can fix by digging around one prison." "That's why I'm not stopping at one," she said quietly. Her phone buzzed on the desk. A secure notification, unknown sender. She opened it. No message, just an attachment. A still image. A snow-covered yard, high walls. A line of men in thick winter uniforms and blindfolds. Guards stood behind them, hands locked on their collars, bending them forward at the waist. Black Dolphin. Her heart punched once, hard. At the bottom of the photo, in the corner, a timestamp and a string of coordinates, and 6 letters. List 2, emptied. Another buzz. A second image arrived. Fluorescent lights, narrow corridor, green painted walls. Carandiru's surviving wing. She recognized it from archival photos, even though the original complex had been mostly demolished. This time, there were stretchers. Not all of them occupied. List 3, in progress. Her fingers flew over the screen. "Those came just now?" Correa asked. "Yes." Her voice came out thinner than she liked. "They are sending it to you. Because they want me to watch, to follow, to step back into something I walked away from 10 years ago. Or because they want me close enough to cut my throat when it's done." She forwarded the images to an encrypted cloud and wiped them from the device. "I need to leave Venezuela, now," she said, standing. "You'll never get clearance through official channels," Correa warned. "If this program is active again, if it ever stopped, your name is either on a desk or already on a pallet. I'm not asking for clearance." She pocketed her phone, the list, the journalist's file. "I just need 10 minutes and a quiet corner to make some calls." He watched her for a long beat, then nodded toward the back hallway. "Use the old infirmary. No cameras. Not the ones you can see, anyway." The infirmary was a tiled room that smelled of disinfectant that had given up. A rusted bed frame leaned in one corner. Someone had left a plastic chair. Elena sat, opened her laptop, and tethered to a hidden network. Fingers moving from reflex, she punched in a contact she hadn't used in years. Lucas Grant, former Europol liaison, officially retired, unofficially allergic to retirement. He answered on the third ring. Elena? His voice carried sleep and suspicion. Tell me this isn't about Residuo. What do you know about La Sabaneta, Black Dolphin, and Carandiru sharing transfer patterns? He swore softly. You don't ease into things, do you? Elena. I know enough to wish I didn't, he said. There's chatter about legacy assets being reclassified. Files are disappearing. Physical, digital, people. Why? Because someone just sent me video proof they're moving prisoners tonight, coordinated, 3 countries. Silence. Then, are you at home? I'm inside La Sabaneta. A low whistle. Of course you are. I need access, he said. Whatever scraps are left, dead Residuo dumps, satellite logs, transfer authorizations, anything tying these places together. You're asking me to break into an archive that doesn't officially exist anymore, he muttered. Since when has that stopped you? He hesitated. He heard keys, the distinct echo of another room. Fine, but this call never happened. I'll ping you a dead drop in an hour. You're sure you want back in, Lena? There it was, the nickname from a lifetime ago. I don't think I ever really left, she said. She ended the call before he could answer. On the way out of the infirmary, she caught her reflection in a cracked mirror. Tired eyes, hair pulled back too tightly, a woman who should have stayed away when she still had the chance. The courtyard sounded different when she stepped back into it. Quieter, focused.
Guards were pushing inmates back against the walls, corralling them into groups. A truck had backed into the far corner, its engine idling. Men in uniforms she didn't recognize, darker, cleaner, without local insignia, were unloading black plastic crates. She walked toward them. A hand clamped around her arm. Don't, Correa hissed. His eyes flicked toward the truck. They're not mine. Whose are they? Ministry, they said, or army, or something above both. His grip hardened. You stand too close, they'll notice you, and if they notice you, you won't make your flight. What are they bringing in? Not in, out. The back of the truck swung open. For a moment, all she saw were shadows. Then one of the crates slid forward and cracked open under its own weight. Inside, stacked like files in an overflowing cabinet, were folders. Dozens, hundreds, some in boxes, some bound with twine. All stamped with different seals, different languages. And on the side of each crate, spray-painted in hurried, ugly letters, one word: Residuo. Her chest tightened. She knew those seals. She'd seen them on the documents they'd been ordered to burn years ago. Someone wasn't destroying the old program. They were relocating it. As she watched, one of the men in the cleaner uniforms glanced up, scanning the yard. His eyes brushed over the guards, the inmates, and then stopped on her. They didn't widen, they didn't narrow, they simply paused, as if checking something against an internal list. He touched the radio at his shoulder. "Detective," Correa said under his breath, "go." She didn't argue. For the first time that day, Elena Marquez did the one thing she hated most. She turned her back on what was happening in front of her and walked away, feeling his gaze on her spine the entire time, knowing with a sick certainty that whether she ran to Brazil, Russia, or the end of the earth, whoever was moving those crates already knew her name, and they were almost finished deciding what to do with it.
The jet descended into Moscow under a sheet of low gray clouds, the sky hanging heavy like wet concrete. Elena gripped the armrest as the wheels hit the runway with a violent bounce. Every instinct she had screamed that she shouldn't be here, not alone, Not without protection, not while her name was on a list someone was working desperately to erase. But if the residuo crates had appeared in La Sabaneta, if the transfer images from Carandiru and Black Dolphin were real, if the journalist investigating all this had vanished, then the trail didn't end in Venezuela. It was branching, converging, and the next branch led here. She stepped into the terminal, pulled her coat tight, and joined the river of travelers flowing toward customs. She kept her eyes down. Don't stand out. Don't look afraid. Don't look like someone being hunted. Her phone buzzed once. A new message from Lucas. No text, just coordinates. And below that, a single sentence. This is as far as I can get you. Elena memorized the coordinates before deleting the message. The coordinates pointed to Orenburg Oblast, just outside the gates of Black Dolphin Prison. A cold knot formed in her stomach. Black Dolphin wasn't just a prison. It was a machine designed to break human beings down into obedient pieces. A place where inmates were bent double at the waist, marched blindfolded, and forbidden to look a guard in the eyes. No cameras inside, no independent oversight, no leaks. Except someone had leaked. Someone inside Black Dolphin had filmed a line of men being moved at 2:14 a.m. List 2, emptied. Elena walked through the terminal and stepped into the icy wind outside. Her breath fogged instantly, hanging in the air before vanishing the way her leads always seemed to. She rented a small gray sedan, cash, no ID, and began the 4-hour drive east. The road grew emptier, quieter, forests thinned, snow deepened. Her mind raced the entire way. If Residuo was active again, if inmates were being removed from all 3 prisons, if the journalist knew enough to be taken, then someone was rebuilding the original Irrecoverable Assets program, wiping out names that were never meant to survive. And if her name was still on the original list, she might already be marked for removal. By the time she reached the outskirts of Black Dolphin, night had swallowed everything except the prison's lights, white, surgical, glaring like the eyes of a predator. She parked a mile out, walked the rest of the way, boots crunching through snow, fingers numb. A chain-link fence rose from the darkness, topped with razor wire. Then she saw it, a light flicker, a silhouette behind the fence, waiting. She froze. Lucas? No, a voice answered, calm, low. But he sent me. A man stepped into the light, tall, weathered face, dark coat, hands inside his pockets like he was holding something heavy. Who are you? Elena asked. Nikolai. He glanced back toward the prison. I won't stand here long. Cameras sweep every 30 seconds. What did you bring me? A complication. His breath fogged the air. The prisoners who were moved last night, they didn't leave Russia. Elena's heart hammered. Where are they? Nikolai hesitated. They're inside a sublevel that isn't on the blueprints, a wing only 3 administrators know exists. Why tell me? Nikolai's eyes flicked toward the dark tree line, scanning the shadows. Because you're already dead if someone doesn't, and because Daniel Havel, the journalist, they brought him there. The words hit her like a blow. He's alive? Barely. His jaw tightened. And they'll finish him when they finish the rest of the list. Elena stepped closer. What list? What exactly is being emptied? Nikolai inhaled sharply, battling whether to say it. Finally, not prisoners, witnesses. Her stomach dropped. Witnesses to what? To the Residuo's real purpose, Nikolai whispered. The program didn't disappear 10 years ago. It went dormant. Now it's waking up, and before it relaunches, they're eliminating every person who knew it existed. Elena swallowed hard.
And Black Dolphin is one of the cleanup sites? All three are, Nikolai said. Brazil, Russia, Venezuela. Places where deaths and transfers can be hidden. Places you can bury men without burying bodies. A beam of light swept across the snow. Nikolai stiffened. They're coming. We must go. Footsteps crunched toward them from the darkness. Elena's pulse spiked. Who? Not guards, Nikolai said. Worse. Three figures appeared, silent, coordinated, dressed in the same unmarked uniforms she'd seen in La Sabaneta unloading the residuo crates. Her blood turned to ice. The men fanned out in a triangle formation. Nikolai grabbed her arm. Run! A shout exploded behind them. Snow erupted where a bullet struck inches from Elena's boot. She stumbled, breath tearing in her lungs. Nikolai dragged her up. Go! Another gunshot cracked the air. They dove behind a fallen log as branches snapped above them. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. Why are they shooting? I'm not armed. You know too much, and you came to the wrong prison. The gunfire stopped. Silence fell, too suddenly, too completely. A voice echoed through the trees. Calm, cold, amplified through a small speaker. Detective Marquez. Her breath caught. You were warned not to follow the path. A second pause. But now that you have, we'll simply accelerate your turn. Elena's hands shook as she crawled backward behind the log. Another voice, Nikolai's, broke through the terror. Detective, look at the tree. She turned. A sheet of paper was pinned to the bark with a knife. Her name was printed at the top. Below it, the list. Dozens of names, crossed out one by one. Daniel Havel. 5 others she recognized from old task force files. More marked only by numbers or initials. Her eyes reached the bottom of the page. Her throat closed. Her name wasn't crossed out, but next to it, written in red ink, Tonight. Nikolai pulled her to her feet and whispered, They're not trying to kill you here. What are they trying to do? She asked, her voice trembling. He stepped back, his breath white against the dark. To take you alive. Before she could speak, before she could even breathe, a floodlight hit them. Dozens of footsteps thundered through the snow, black shapes closing in. Nikolai shoved her hard into the trees. Run! Don't stop! Don't look back! She didn't know where she was going. She didn't know who knew she was coming. She didn't know how far she'd get. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Someone had resurrected Residuo, and tonight they planned to erase her name.